I think a lot of people need to understand the difference between a statement and a prophecy, or a word or a sentence that looks like a familiar statement or a prophecy. Because I feel majority of the time, anytime anybody looks through the scriptures and they see something, wording, sentence, statement that looks like that which is in the New Testament, they say, this is a prophecy fulfilled. But I believe a prophecy would go something like, this shall happen, and it would happen, and this would come to pass. You understand? I think people need to understand the difference between something that is being prophesied about, or a statement that is talking about the future, or something that is happening now. And when these basic things are laid down, a lot of people are going to be able to tell the difference between a prophetic word and just a statement. It's that easy. Aquaba. Welcome once again to the Melanated Truth. I'm your humble servant, Kojo Bento, and I'm excited to have you here. I'm excited to have you here. Listen, I'm not going to take any much of your time. I want to go straight into it, and today I'm talking about, why have thou forsaken me? Why hast thou forsaken me? You will be surprised that a lot of people wouldn't even know that this verse is, or this scripture is actually in the scriptures, and it's not just a New Testament statement. It's something that is actually in the scriptures, and it's something that actually happened in the scriptures and not the New Testament. Because most people just read the New Testament because they have this concept that they are under the new covenant. They are not in the old covenant, or they are under the New Testament. They are under the Spirit of grace. Listen, let's just jump straight into it, and let's see where the statement, why hast thou forsaken me, actually came from. Let's go straight to Matthew 27. Matthew 27 is where we can find this. So let's go straight to Matthew 27. Why hast thou forsaken me? Matthew 27:46. It says, and about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. Sabachthani. This is the old King James that you're having. That is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? My God, why hast thou forsaken me? Mark 15:34 says, and at the 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, which is interpreted, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Another thing we got to understand is that Luke and John does not hold to this claim. Luke and John does not believe this claim. So in Luke and in John, none of them said anything about, Eli, Eli, why have thou forsaken me? My God, why hast thou forsaken me? None of them said this. Let's say Mark and Matthew are saying this. Luke and John is saying this didn't happen. Luke 23:46 says, and when Jesus had cried with a loud voice, he said, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. And Jesus cried out with a loud voice, Father, into your hands. So Luke is saying that when Jesus was about dying, he just cried out with a loud voice, saying, Father, unto your hands I commit my spirit. So according to Luke, this whole Eli, Eli, my God, why have thou forsaken me, didn't happen. Jesus didn't say it. According to Luke. According to Matthew and Mark, they are saying it happened. Luke is saying it didn't happen. John said he just bowed down his head and died, and there was no dramatic exit. John 19:30. And when Jesus therefore had received the vinegar, he said, it is finished. He bowed down his head and gave up the ghost. When he received the vinegar, he bowed down his head and he gave up his ghost. So Luke and John is saying, listen, there was no dramatic exit. There was no, Father, Father, why hast thou forsaken me? Right? But Matthew and Mark is saying, so the question is, let's even say this is a 50-50 poll. Who is right here? Who should we go with? I mean, if something that is so pivotal about the whole Christian journey is recorded or is happening, I believe everyone that is given an account of what happened should see that aspect and know that, okay, this actually happened. But for the two of them to come to a point where they say, two is saying it did, two is saying it did not, which one should we take? So let's find out where we can actually find the scripture. Psalm 22 says, it start from the verse 1. One thing you should know is that in Psalms 22, the King James started Psalm 22. How should I say this? The King James skipped the first part of Psalm 22 and started this verse 2 of Psalm 22 actually as verse 1 in the King James. So the King James omitted the Psalm 22 verses 1. But in the Tanakh, you will see that Psalm 22 verses 1 is different from King James' Psalm 22 verses 1. So when you are reading a scripture, a verse or a chapter, and you lose the introduction which introduces the verse, you would miss what the verse is actually talking about. Right? So in the Tanakh, the Psalm 22 verses 1 says what? For the leader upon Ayelet Ha-Shahar, a psalm of David. So from the start, Psalm 22 verses 1 in the Tanakh, it says what? A psalm of David. So from the start, it is telling you that this is a psalm of David. It's giving you an idea who this chapter is talking about. So Psalm 22 verses 2 in the Tanakh, which now becomes Psalm 22 verses 1 in the King James, says what? My God, why hast thou forsaken me? My God, why hast thou forsaken me? Why have you turned your face from helping me? And art far from my help at the words of my cry. So when you consider the Tanakh, you can see that originally this psalm is about David and nobody else. Because for the leader, a psalm of David, for the leader upon Ayelet Ha-Shahar, a psalm of David. So this is obviously saying that this is a psalm about David. This is not a psalm about anybody. So from the onset, the Tanakh makes you understand that this is about David and nobody else. So it says in the verse 2 of the Tanakh, the King James Version will come into the 3, right? Or the King James Version will be the verse 1, but the King James Version will be the verse 1, but in the Tanakh this will be the verse 2. Okay, he said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me, and art far from my help at the words of my cry? And you are far from the words of my cry. This is definitely showing somebody that is desperately seeking the help of the Father and is not getting the help over a period of time. So this person in question is trying to reach out for help and is not getting the help. You go to the next verse, it says, oh my God, I cry in the daytime, but thou hearest me not. And in the night season, I am not silent. So verse 3 in the Tanakh, which will be your verse 2, says what? Oh my God, I cry by day, but thou answerest not. And at night, and there is no success for me. So this is obviously telling you this is not some 3 hours experience. How can you have day and night in 3 hours? Because when we compare this to Jesus, Jesus only had this experience within 3 hours. But the psalm is saying, my God, why have thou forsaken me? I have cried day and night trying to reach for you. So probably this person is fasting and praying and crying day and night, trying to get the attention of the Most High, and it's not coming. How does this fit Jesus though? You get what I'm saying? How does this fit Jesus? How is this talk about Jesus? He is crying for help. And this is not any prophetic statement either. Because if it was a prophetic statement, it would have been said that, my God, why would thou forsake him or something? Or why, oh my God, you would forsake him, that which is about to die. It will be something. Right? But this is not a prophetic statement. He's not speaking into the future. He's saying it now. And even that, he's been crying unto the Father day and night. Do you get it? He's crying unto the Father day and night to get the Father's attention. It's not something he's doing within 3 hours. It's quite obvious that this is something he's definitely crying out for day and night. Not within a short period of time. Not within hours. Because it says so. He cried day and night, trying to reach out to the Most High, but constantly, when he cries, he never gets his answer. Let's jump to the verses 3. He says what? Again, I'm using the Tanakh because it will be verses 2 in your version. The verse 3 shows that Jesus obviously didn't cry day and night. He cried within seconds, minutes. Within seconds. But David was crying day and night to get to the Father's attention, right? So let's jump to the verse 10 in the Tanakh. He says that, the verse 10 to 11 says, let me read it from the Tanakh. The verse 10 to 11 says, for thou art he that took me out of my mother's womb. Thou madest me trust when I was upon my mother's breast. Upon thee I have been cast from my bed. Thou art my God from my mother's womb. Again, David is trying to say that, listen, you have been my dependent. You have been my God. You took me out of my mother's womb. This is not saying anything about a divine birth or a Holy Spirit filled birth. No, this is David actually having an ordinary birth and being an ordinary person. That right from his birth, he's always dependent on the Most High for help. So then again, this is trying to explain to you who is talking. How can this be about Jesus? And that is the problem of many Christians. Because they just read from one verse and just go, yea, I've gotten, why have thou forsaken me? Have you seen? Even David is prophesying about it. But when you actually carry on and keep reading, the verse 10 clearly says that this person in question is talking about a natural birth, had a natural birth experience, came out of the mother's womb. The Most High secured him coming out of the mother's womb, and since he came out, he has called the Most High his God. His God. Remember, there's nowhere Jesus referred to the Most High as my God. Nowhere in the New Testament that Jesus referred to the Most High, my God. Apart from, of course, what is being said as what is lifted from David and what is being, my God, why has thou forsaken me? Apart from that, Jesus always referred to the Most High, my Father. But inasmuch as David from time to time would refer to the Most High as my Father, there are a couple of times, a lot of times he said, my God, do not forsake me. Jonathan, several times he said, my God, do not forsake me. And also, another point is that the Most High has been good unto David from birth. The Most High has been good unto David from birth and has never abandoned David. So David has always had the Most High by his side. So now all of a sudden, this person that has always been there, he can't find him. Trouble is everywhere. He says, my God, my God. Then we jump to verses 15. Verses 15 says what? I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. And all my bones are out of joint. My heart is become like wax. It is melted in my innermost part or inmost part. So what does it mean for David to say, my bones are out of joint? Because I know here Christians will use this verse and say that, oh, this is what John 19:33 is talking about, that his bone was not broken. His bone. So if somebody say my bone is not broken, and then somebody say my bones are out of joint, it's just saying the same thing. Come on, let's think about this. The one, if I say I didn't see any of my bone broken, what does it mean? And I come again and say my bone is out of joint. What does it mean? Let me see what the King James says. That'll be the verse 14. It says, I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It is melted in the midst of my bowels. So the King James is even suggesting to you that this has nothing to do with a broken or a kick bone. This is just somebody going completely out of joint. Somebody that is weary. Somebody that is weary. You can ask our mothers, when somebody says my bones feels out of joint, what does it mean? Come on. This is plain English. We shouldn't even worry about this. John 19:33 it's not any prophetic word that is fulfilled. This David was saying this, and David was just saying how perplexed he was, how totally broken he was. He lost hope. He's out of it. Right? Let's go to this verse 17, which will be 16 in the King James. It says what? It says, for dogs have compassed me, a company of evildoers have enclosed me. Your version will say, the verse 16 says what? They pierce my hands and my feet. That is a lie. King James inserted this there because they wanted this to so much fit like Jesus. So they inserted this there. They pierce my bones. They pierce my hands and my bones. The Tanakh says, let me read the Tanakh to you. It says, for dogs have compassed me, a company of evildoers have enclosed me. Like a lion, they are at my hands and my feet. And they twisted it and lied and wrote to you, they pierced my hands and my feet. Right? Remember, David is the one saying this. Right? Okay, let's go and let me prove to you that this was not talking about the pierced, but this is actually talking about lions. Okay? So let's go to verses 14 in the Tanakh, but it will be verses 13 in the King James, right? So let's read the 13. They gap upon me with their mouth. They gap upon me with their mouth as a ravening and a roaring lion. As a ravening and a roaring lion. So you see, David started saying this to like lions, they come around me. That is why he came to say in the verses 16 of your version that lions, they take my feet and my hands like lions. They attack my feet and my hands. Right? Like lions, they attack my feet. So the original version is not they pierced my side. They lied. They lied. They twisted it. They lied. The verses 13 in your version is showing you. David started saying, as raving lions, they gather around me. They gap upon me with their mouth as ravening lions, and as a ravening and a roaring lion. You see, and he will say this again. He will say this again in the verses, what do you call it? He will say this again in the verses 21. It says what? Save me from the lion's mouth, for thou hast heard me from the horns of the unicorn. Do you get it? Save me from the lions. So David was referring to lions and not they pierced my hands. Who are they? Save me from the lions. But John 20:25 will make you look like, oh, this is a prophecy. And David said, they pierced my side. That is how come the King James have to twist it and make it look like they pierced my side. But he said, like lions, they are at my hands and my feet. Let's go to the next one. The verses 17 in your version is verses 18 here. It says what? And I may count all my bones. They look and gloat over me. I may count all my bones. They look and gloat over me. Verse 17 says here, in your version, it says, I may tell all my bones. They look and stared upon me. Now let me paint a picture to you. So Jesus nailed to the cross, right? How is he able to count all his bones? And besides, the minute they pierced him, he gave up. So was the dead Jesus counting all his bones, or what was going on? Remember, I told you earlier on that David has to fast and pray day and night because he was crying unto the Most High. And what happens when you fast and pray day and night till you have an answer? You grow lame. So David was just saying, I can see my ribs, I can count all my bones. That's your version will say what? I may tell all my bones. They look upon me and laugh. Why did they look upon me? Because I've grown lame. I've become bony. I can count my bones. Not when you are nailed to the cross dead. The end time, what time are you going to get to count your bones when you are busy dead? So David, as I told you from the beginning, right, fasted and prayed all day and night. Jesus was not hanging on the cross, fasting day and night, crying unto. So when you pay attention and study, why hast thou forsaken me? Has nothing to do with Jesus. This is David saying his own story. David. And there's nowhere in scripture that says they pierced my side apart from Psalms 22. And Psalms 22, the original version says what? Has nothing to do with they pierced my side. And the 18, which is 17 in your version, say I can count all my bones. Why was he able to count his bones? Because he fasted and prayed. The 20 says, deliver my soul from the sword and my darling from the power of dogs. The Tanakh says, but thou, O Lord, be not far off. O thou art my strength, hasten to help me. 21 says, deliver my soul from the sword, my only one from the power of the dog. So deliver my soul. Who was the darling of Jesus? If this Psalm 22 is about Jesus, who was the darling of Jesus? Who was his darling that was heading for the death and he needed his darling to be saved? My one and only. He said, deliver my soul from the power of the sword and my one and only from the power of dogs. So you see, he uses animals as his enemies. So he was never going to say they pierced me. He said lions. And now he says, deliver my one and only from the power of the dogs. Or from the power of the dog. Who was the one and only of Jesus? Who was the one and only of Jesus? Answer me. If Jesus had the one and only darling, read your King James 20. Verses 20 says, deliver my soul from the sword, my darling from the power of the dog. Who was the darling of Jesus? Who was the darling of Jesus that needed to be saved? He moved on to say, so first of all, another thing we need to pay attention to this. Deliver my soul from the sword. So what was coming? Absalom wanted to kill David. The sword. The sword. It wasn't a cross. A cross killed Jesus, not a sword. David, a sword was coming after him. Are you getting the difference? So he says, deliver my darling, deliver my soul from the sword. Take me away from the sword and deliver my darling from the power of the dogs. Who is the darling of Jesus? Did Jesus have a darling? Maybe somebody can answer me. Who is the darling of Jesus? Do you get what I'm saying? Let's go on. Let's go. Save me from the lion's mouth. Again, you see, he's using the lion again. Save me from the lion's mouth. For thou hast heard me from the horns of the unicorn. I will declare thy name unto my brethren. In the midst of the congregation, I will praise thee. Where did this happen with Jesus? You see, you cannot take a single verse out of a chapter and say, only this verse is talking about Jesus, the rest is not talking about them. But meanwhile, it's an entire statement of David. It's an entire chapter of David. So David goes ahead to say what? I will declare thy name unto my brethren, and in the midst of my congregation I will praise thee. Yet ye that fear the Lord, praise him. All ye the seed of Jacob, glorify him and fear him. All ye the seed of Israel. For he had not despised nor abhorred the affliction of the afflicted, neither has he hid his face from him. So now David all of a sudden praising and saying, listen, the Most High has not turned his back on me. He's not done that. He's always there for the afflicted. Right? Neither has he hid his face from him, but he cried unto him, he heard. So now David said, when I cried, my father, why have thou forsaken me? He heard my cry. 25 says so. My praise shall be of thee in the great congregation. Where was this? Jesus was dead. There was no great congregation Jesus was going to. First and foremost, when Jesus go into the congregation, Jesus is not going to dance in the bed. Jesus is going to teach. David was going to praise in the midst of the congregation, not teach anybody. I would pay my vows before them that fear him. I would pay my vows before the priests, before the leaders, before those. Where did Jesus pay his vows? Not his taxes, because I know what you will say about taxes. Right? The meek shall eat and be satisfied. They shall praise the Most High. They shall praise the Most High that seek him. Your heart will live forever. So if you seek, David said, listen, if you seek the Most High, your heart will live forever. Your heart, I'm excited. I thought he had forsaken me, but oh no, he didn't. And all the ends of the world shall remember and turn unto the Most High. And all the kindreds of the nations shall worship before thee. For the kingdom is the Most High's, and he is the governor amongst the nations. All they that be fat upon the earth shall eat and worship. All they that go down to the dust shall bow before him. None can keep alive his own soul. Right? A seed shall serve him, and he shall be accounted to the Most High for a generation. They shall come and shall declare his righteousness unto a people that shall be born, that he had done this. So David is just praising that when I cried, I thought he had forsaken me, but I now know he didn't forsake me. He had me and he came to deliver me and my darling. Then David goes ahead to say, when you read your Bible, he said, David acclaims, the Lord is my shepherd. Why is David saying the Lord is my shepherd? Because just like David, he being a shepherd boy, and every time his sheep were in trouble, he will go and fight and defend his sheep. It's the same way the Most High came to fight and defend David. So it continues with Psalm 23, says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. Remember that don't pour my soul over to the enemy. Now, David has gotten his soul restored. And he leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. So David is not calling himself the righteous man as Jesus called himself. David said, no. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Though I walked through, so though I saw death all around me, I was not afraid. I did not die because you came in to rescue me. Your rod and thy staff, they comfort. Your word, I heard your rod and thy staff, the meter. The staff is that which you use to direct, right? To lead, to direct. The rod is the meter, is the standard, which is his word. So your word, they comforted me. Your rod and thy staff, they comforted me. Right? It says what? The 5 says, thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anoint my head with oil, my cup runs. So in the presence of the lions and dogs, he has prepared a table before him. In the presence of lions and dogs, he has prepared a table. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Most High forever. This, thou hast forsaken me, was a psalm of David. I'm begging you, when we put any line, when we want to, before we jump and say something is prophecy, let's go and find out if this thing was a prophecy or it was a statement. If it was a statement, what was the statement about? Who was saying the statement? Where was the statement going? What did the statement refer to? What was the statement about? There's a difference between a prophecy and a statement. When somebody is telling about their own life and struggle, please, it's not a prophetic word. David wasn't speaking in the future and saying that Jesus Christ will come to a place where you shout, my Lord. No. The New Testament writers went to pick this verse to just oppose it to the story they were creating to authenticate the New Testament, because they know there's no grounds to the New Testament. I hope today's lesson was a blessing. I hope today's lesson was a blessing. Don't forget, I come your way same time tomorrow with another one that will bless your spirit. Make sure you like, you subscribe, and you tell everybody that we are learning here. If you have a question, send it through. I will answer it. Stay blessed. I love you guys. See you soon.